There you go, Subscott here. I'm going to talk about three things here as it pertains to wrestling. Samoa Joe leaving TNA earlier this week. My thoughts on Fastlane, brief thoughts on Fastlane, and my thoughts on the potential Undertaker Bray Wyatt feud going into WrestleMania this year. First, Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe announced via Twitter that he has parted ways with TNA this past Tuesday. I, for one, was shocked. I mean, I guess really shouldn't come too much as a surprise. I mean, anytime TNA can't keep AJ Styles, the face of that company or former face of that company, that says something there. Um, Samoa Joe has been with TNA just as long as AJ Styles, maybe not as long, but he's one of the originals, and for him to it said that it all came down to money, like Styles, they couldn't pay him. Um, I think it's really sad. Um, Even Velvet Sky on Twitter said that she was shocked and she's like, TNA isn't the same place it used to be, and just by her clarifying that, it it just it really sets in my mind that TNA is really dying. They are dying. I mean, yes, they have budget cuts. Yes, I mean, but that company, if you see where they were from like 5 years ago to right now, that company is bleeding out slowly. Slowly, they're bleeding out. It's just only a matter of time. And this time, I've never been one type of people that say, "Well, this year's gonna be the final nail in the coffin for TNA. This year's gonna be the final nail for the coffin for TNA." I've never said that. I don't want TNA to fail, but really looking at this company, it's just really they're it seems like they're going to die slowly, but by bleeding slowly. Like I said, it's only a matter of time. But On to Samoa Joe. Where could Samoa Joe go? I know Samoa Joe. He could go back to ROH. He could go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's got some history there. Others brought up Lucha Underground. I don't know if Lucha Underground um, would pick up Joe. They could, but I don't know. Um, I know Steve Austin said on Twitter he thinks WWE should take a look at him because he thinks Joe's a hell of a talent. I've heard Triple H has been a fan of Samoa Joe and has said once before that he would like to give Joe a shot at NXT. Samoa Joe is 35. He's not quite in his prime, but yet he hasn't really reached, you know, that that he hasn't reached his. He's not in his prime, but he's not reached his twilight years either. I would say he's like smack dab in the middle. So he's 35 years old. Um, could I see Samoa Joe in WWE, NXT? I think it'd be cool. I know WWE are supposed to have some tryouts in the next coming weeks or months, and it is speculated that they could give Samoa Joe a love call to try out. Whatever the case may be, whether Joe goes to ROH, Underground, WWE, NXT, Samoa Joe to me, he needs to light a fire under his butt. Samoa Joe has not been the same for years in TNA. Ever since he lost the world title to Sting at Bound for Glory in 2008, Joe, and I even blame TNA for that on this part as well, but Joe has just been complacent. It's like he had just been he's been there just to be there. Like that was it. Um, Joe is not the same Samoa Joe that he once was. And it's like he's just complacent. He's just there. So wherever he goes next in wrestling, I hope Joe gets a light lit under his butt, get some passion back, maybe cut back on some weight a little bit, something. Because I really like Samoa Joe. I think Joe has a lot more gas in the tank. I think Joe can still can perform and put on good matches, which he has put on some pretty good matches in TNA recently. Um, but I just think Joe needs that fire back. I think he's lost that fire. Um, So there's that. WWE Fastlane. Um, how should I say this? Fastlane, real quick. I think personally, I like the feud between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. This is what I was talking about. That I said for quite some time. Having young stars, new fresh stars in that main event scene, battling it out against each other. Um, Daniel Bryan is more of an established mace. He's already an established star compared to Roman Reigns, but he's still fresh to the main event scene, or still somewhat new to the main event scene. Roman Reigns, they're trying to get there, and I've loved the feud between these guys and the build for these two going into the pay per view. WWE must be listening to the internet, the fans, or something, because ever since Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns has been talking less and kicking more butt, and that's what they need to do, and they need to continue that trend with Roman Reigns. You know, going into WrestleMania and beyond until he could, learn how to speak better. But until then, keep Roman Reigns as he is. Roman Reigns has been a little bit edgy lately. Even Daniel Bryan's been a little bit edgy. They need to do this more. Give the baby faces some edge to them. Give them some meat besides being all white potato, so to speak. I also want to hit on the Dean Ambrose going for the Intercontinental title. Some people been a Debbie Downer on the whole Dean Ambrose and the Intercontinental title scene. Honestly, right now, realistically, what could you really do with Dean Ambrose going into WrestleMania? I think the next best thing is the IC title, because compared to the US title, that's the only belt that really matters compared to the mid card belts. I mean, even though Rusev is the current US champ, and he's kind of doing something with it, but not really. But you get what I mean. WWE cares about the IC belt more, I should say. I've enjoyed the way Ambrose has his promos and his skits and things that he's done to get into that title picture. I've enjoyed that. I think it's been he's acted clever and it's been entertaining. Dean Ambrose is definitely a sleeper to WWE compared to the other two former Shield members. But I think with Dean Ambrose, I think it's okay that he's kind of going at a slow pace. He might not be getting that Roman Reigns push or that Seth Rollins push right now, but I do think by him being organically liked amongst fans, and by them building him up kind of slowly, I think when Ambrose finally does get his moment, it'll mean more, it'll be worth something, and then we'll be able to look back, like at this time period right now and be like, okay, well, Ambrose did this, that, and the other. It was a very slow build. It wasn't as quickly as the other two Shield members, but and so I think it'll mean more. So I have no problem with Ambrose going for the IC title, at Fastlane, and he'll probably still do something with Barrett beyond going to Mania. And then last but not least, Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker. Surprisingly, a lot of people are negative of this idea. Some people say, well, because Undertaker lost his streak last year, what's the point? It's frivolous. I can kind of see where some of those people come from when they make that argument. However, though, it's like, okay, if Undertaker's streak was still intact, the match still wouldn't be any more intriguing if it was intact, because Undertaker is going to win at WrestleMania. The streak is just going to continue. So by you getting rid of the streak being ended, you get that you get rid of the idea that Undertaker is going to automatically win. It's now split down 50-50. Either Undertaker can win or Undertaker can lose, because now that streak that eludes over everyone's head at WrestleMania is no longer a factor. So I think Bray Wyatt and Undertaker, I will say storyline wise, I think can be a very intriguing storyline. I think match quality wise, I'm not too sure about that. Some people are like, well, what's the point of having Undertaker lose at two WrestleManias in a row? Um, Again, I personally don't see too much of a bad thing with this. Undertaker has always been one of those guys to give back to the business. Um, so I don't think Undertaker would have a problem in putting, a Bray Wyatt over, putting a young guy over. Um, the Bray Wyatt character has been deemed by not only many fans, but even Jim Ross himself as kind of like, the next generation of an Undertaker. Not quite like Undertaker, but could be that alternative Undertaker version for a newer generation, so to speak, if built properly. And I agree with that. You can see the similarities. I wouldn't have a problem with Bray facing Undertaker. I think it'd be an interesting story, to say, hey, he lost his streak last year. Undertaker's not the same anymore. He calls himself the dead man, but he's truly really not that immortal. And you have here a young guy who comes from, I guess you could say, just as much as a dark place, or in Bray Wyatt's mind, a darker place than the Undertaker has. And he's going to put that final nail in the coffin and lay the old dog down and prove the naysayers wrong. And, prove that, the dead man is no more than a mere mortal, a myth, kind of like thing. I think if they played the story out that way, which they could, it looks like they may play it out that way. I think it'd be fun storytelling. So I have no problem with Bray versus Undertaker. If you look at some of the potential matches at WrestleMania, it really looks like WrestleMania 21, 10 years ago, where you had those younger stars going up against the veterans, and it's the new generation that's getting over. I said this last year, WrestleMania 30. Around that time, I said WrestleMania 31 needs to be the Mania where you get the stars to get over the veterans. And if you get, say, Roman versus Brock, Cena versus Rusev, Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker, I don't know who else you could have, but Seth Rollins versus a Randy Orton. I mean, I think that's a pretty decent Mania card. You're getting those young guys over. But anyway, this is just my thoughts. You guys let me know what you think about these three topics in the comment box below. Comment, subscribe, peace.